Hi there. Our topic is the Fibonacci sequence as a basis for ruling planets of zodiac signs. This is one of the discoveries of astrologer Russell Ohlhausen. You'll see his name given as Russell Ohlhausen, sometimes as Russell Ohlhausen. It's the same person. And he posted this information on Facebook, and I'm sharing it here with his permission. This is a diagram that Russell made. I've added two things to it. I've added this planet and number around the outside, and I've copied this ruler. It says rulership indig. I'll explain this in a moment. This table here, which he has in a variation of this diagram. So what is this diagram showing? It's showing that if you take the Fibonacci sequence, which I'll explain what that is in a minute, and you place it around the zodiac, and you place it starting with the beginning of Cancer but going backwards. Okay, so here we have Cancer, Leo, Virgo. So here's the beginning of Cancer, end of Gemini, and we're going to go backwards through the zodiac starting at 0 Cancer, and we're simply going to place the Fibonacci sequence around the outer edge, going clockwise, starting at 0 Cancer. The Fibonacci sequence is this sequence of numbers: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, and so on. By the time you go all the way around, you reach 46,368. So what Russell did is he assigned two numbers to each zodiac sign, one number to each half of the sign, which is quite interesting because in other videos I made on prime numbers, we also divide each sign in half, and so he's dividing the sign in half also. Interesting coincidence. And how he noticed this is amazing, some stroke of genius or something, but he happened to notice if you take this Fibonacci sequence and you put it around the circle, and then you reduce them to 9, you get the sequence of rulerships. Well, first let me explain what the Fibonacci sequence is. Fibonacci sequence is you start with the number 1, and then you put 1 again, and then you just add the numbers. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 1 plus 2 equals 3. So you take the last two digits in your sequence. 2 plus 3 equals 5, 3 plus 5 equals 8, 5 plus 8 equals 13, 8 plus 13 equals 21, and so on. So you just keep adding those numbers, and all kinds of things in nature correspond to this Fibonacci sequence. It's a very important concept in mathematics. So you just lay it out around, and then you reduce it to 9. For example, you add the digits, and you reduce it to 9. So 5 plus 8 is 13. 13 is 1, 3. 1 plus 3 equals 4. So we get 4. So 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. You get 7. So if you get a number greater than 9, you just add the digits again until you get 9. I'll do one more example. 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 5 would be 17. 17 is the digits 1 and 7. 1 plus 7 equals 8. And he calls these indigs, integer digits. So you do the Fibonacci sequence, and you reduce it to 9. And when you do this, you will get the numbers 2, 1 plus 1 for Gemini, for each half. For Taurus, you'll get 2 plus 3 equals 5. So you'll get the numbers 2, 5, 4, 7, 8, 8, 7, 4, 5, 2, 1, and 1. You can look at that, and here are the Fibonacci numbers around the outside, and you can add them together. I did it myself to verify, added these all together, and in fact they reduce to this number. This is just something that Russell noticed. Now, the amazing thing is you get the same exact symmetry as the rulers of the planets. I mean, the ruling planets of the signs. So Capricorn and Aquarius are both ruled by Saturn. They both have 8. So that's why he says Saturn is 8. The next two reduce to 7 and 7. So if we assign Jupiter to 7, which he's done here, Jupiter 7, you get the Jupiter ruling Sagittarius and Pisces. The next two reduce to 4, Aries and Scorpio. Taurus and Libra become 5. Virgo and Virgo and Gemini become the number 2. What becomes 2? Take the Fibonacci numbers, add them together, reduce it to the 9, add the digits together until you get a number from 1 to 9, it'll be 2. And Leo and Cancer both end up being 1, which are the lights, the sun and moon. It's an amazing, unbelievable coincidence. How this happens, why the Fibonacci numbers line up exactly the same as the ruling planets of the signs, it's a bit of a mystery. He noticed it. It makes me wonder, did the ancients know this? Or did they come up with these ruling planets some other way? And this is some mathematical approach that confirms it? I don't know. But all I know is, if you do what Russell did and you put these Fibonacci numbers around, you reduce them to 9, and then you assign the planets as follows. Saturn is 8, Jupiter is 7, Mars is 4, Venus is 5, Mercury is 2, Sun and Moon are 1. You have the ruling planets of the signs. It's a mysterious coincidence. It's amazing. What we conclude from this, I'm not sure. It seems to indicate that there's some other reinforcement for the way that the planets were assigned as rulers to the signs. So that's his observation. So here's our conclusions. Number 1. Now, I didn't mention this before, just as an interesting observation. The ratio of two adjacent Fibonacci numbers approaches the golden ratio. So when you do 2 plus 3 equals 5, and then 2 plus 3 is 5, and 3 plus 5 equals 8, and so on, those two last numbers, when you divide them, they approach the golden ratio. The astrologer Raphael Gilbrand has discovered that many fundamental principles in astrology very strongly appear to be related to the golden ratio. So because the Fibonacci numbers are related to golden ratio, we see the golden ratio showing up in other places in astrology. That's just a curious additional consequence. This is another form of golden ratio, in a sense, because Fibonacci numbers are related to the golden ratio. And also, sometimes different ideas in mathematics almost magically come together, such as if you're familiar with Euler's formula, which integrates seemingly unrelated mathematical concepts, and, for example, that the Fibonacci numbers, the last two numbers of the Fibonacci series, that they approach the golden ratio is almost mysterious. I mean, it's a strange coincidence. There may be some way to understand that, but at least initially it's not obvious why the golden ratio would be related to adding numbers together. So oftentimes things that seem unrelated are related. And now we're finding that the Fibonacci series is related to the rulers, the ruling planets of the signs. This happens sometimes. Mysterious, magical connections between seemingly unrelated things. An extreme example in mathematics is Euler's formula, which is almost mystical because it combines together trigonometric functions like sine and cosine, and the constant e and pi, and it's amazing. So mind-boggling things can happen. Now, lastly, in terms of this question, did the ancients consciously know this, or did they observe it at a later time? I was curious to see how far back Fibonacci numbers go. Sometimes things are discovered, lost, and then rediscovered. But a quote from Wikipedia on Fibonacci numbers is that Susantha Gunatalaki, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, writes that the development of the Fibonacci sequence, quote, is attributed in part to Pingala, who lived somewhere around 200 BC, maybe a little later. So there's some evidence that the Fibonacci sequence was known by at least one person going back that far. Of course, it could be even further, and that does put us fairly close to the time when a lot of these astrological concepts were being developed. So maybe somebody noticed it before. Maybe it reinforced the feeling that these things work. I've presented other videos that show other reasons why the sign rulerships, exaltations, Egyptian bounds, many different things. The fact that there's a zodiac at all seem to be related to numbers. here's another extraordinary example of it. For me, it's a mysterious one. I mean, it's mind-boggling. One astrologer, in response to Russell's post on Facebook, said, well, if that doesn't show you that the classical rulers of the classical ruling planets of the signs don't have some validity, I don't know what will. It's just an amazing coincidence that it supports this idea of a symmetry of numbers in the exact same symmetry as the ruling planets. It's rather extraordinary. So there it is, mystifying, interesting. You can draw what conclusions you want from it. We don't know at this point whether the ancients knew it, if it's a coincidence, or maybe it's just another indication that there maybe is some validity to the idea of ruling planets of the signs. So there you have it. Very interesting and fascinating discovery from Russell Ohlhausen, and he has tons more. Let me just show you this real quickly. If we go back to the diagram, see all these numbers in here? I didn't talk about them. Russell has related these numbers to the decanates and et cetera, and symmetries that are related to Antisha and so on. He has tons more information about this and other insights. I'm just showing the most fundamental thing that he's found. But again, we're seeing more evidence from more astrologers that there does appear to be a strong relationship of numbers and the way numbers are constructed, prime numbers, golden ratio, Fibonacci sequence, all seeming to have close ties to the fundamental principles of astrology. So my congratulations to Russell for these brilliant insights. I hope you found that interesting. God bless. Namaste.